What if one day the devil asked God for permission to test your faith, and within a blink of an eye you lose everything? Your children gone, your home shattered, your wealth destroyed, your health ruined. What if the very people who were meant to console you told you it was your fault? What if God himself stayed silent? Would you still have faith in God? There once lived a man in the land of Uz. His name was Job. He was blameless and upright, who feared God and turned away from evil. Job was a man of great wealth and respected, with 7 sons, 3 daughters, and countless servants. He owned thousands of animals, 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 oxen, and 500 donkey. His home overflowed with joy, laughter, and prayer. Every morning Job offered sacrifices for his children, saying, "Perhaps my sons have sinned in their hearts." But in the courts of heaven, a different conversation began. The angels gathered before the throne of the Almighty, light brighter than the sun, seated upon a chair of living flame. And among them came Satan, the accuser, his form twisted and hideous, eyes burning with envy.
"Where have you come from?"
asked the Lord. Satan replied,
"From roaming throughout the earth and going back and forth on it."
The Lord said,
"Have you considered my servant Job? There is none like him on the earth, fearing God and shunning evil."
But Satan sneered,
"Does Job fear God for nothing? You have blessed him with riches and peace. Take away what he has, and he will curse you to your face."
The Almighty spoke again, his voice like rolling thunder.
"Very well, all that he owns is in your power, but on the man himself do not lay a hand."
And so began the test, the storm that would shake the faith of the strongest man alive.
Please, if you find this video interesting, don't forget to subscribe. Every subscription helps me to continue to produce high-quality content like this, and also buy more cattle.
It was an ordinary day in the land of Uz. The sun rose golden over Job's fields. At that point, peace filled every corner of his home. But unseen above the clouds, the storm had already begun. As Job sat quietly beneath the baobab tree, a man ran toward him, his robe torn, his face covered in dust. "Master," the first messenger cried.
The oxen were plowing and the donkeys grazing nearby when the Sabaeans attacked. They struck down your servants and took the animals. I alone have escaped to tell you."
Job's hand froze midair, his eyes heavy with shock. Before the dust from that man's feet settled, another came, gasping, stumbling with more terrifying news.
"Fire of God fell from the sky,"
he shouted.
"It burned up the sheep and the shepherds. Only I escaped to bring you the news."
Again, as the second messenger finished, a third ran in with worse news. Clothes torn, knees bleeding from the long run.
"The Chaldeans formed 3 bands and raided your camels. They killed every servant. I alone survived."
Job rose to his feet. The world around him seemed to blur. His wife covered her mouth in horror. But then, from the far road, a fourth figure appeared. Slower, weaker, his eyes red with grief. The final messenger fell to the ground, his voice breaking.
Your sons and daughters were feasting in the oldest brother's house when a great wind came from the desert. The house collapsed, and they are gone. All of them."
Silence fell. Job tore his robe in anguish. He fell to his knees. He shaved his head in mourning and bowed low to the ground, saying, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." And in all this Job did not sin, nor did he accuse God of wrongdoing. Once again, the heavenly beings came to present themselves before the Lord, and among them came Satan, the accuser. The Almighty, seated upon his radiant throne of living light, spoke as thunder rolled softly across eternity.
"From where have you come?"
And Satan answered, his voice slithering through the silence,
"From roaming the earth and walking back and forth in it."
Then the Lord said,
"Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him, blameless and upright. Even now he still holds fast to his integrity, though you incited me against him without cause."
Satan sneered and bowed mockingly.
Skin for skin, a man will give all he has for his own life. Stretch out your hand and strike his flesh and bones, and surely he will curse you to your face.
The Lord's light pulsed brighter, firm and unyielding.
Very well,
Said the Almighty.
he is in your hands, but you must spare his life.
And as the light dimmed, Satan's twisted form melted into shadow, descending once more to earth, carrying darkness with him. Job was struck by an illness that tormented him. Painful boils made sores break out of his entire body from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet. All of his body sneered with pain. His skin bursted open with wounds that had pus oozing. Job's mobility was now a painful encounter due to the endless affliction he faced from the trauma. Job was now indistinguishable, having lost his children, wealth, and now his health. He strolled to the outskirts of the city to the spot where ashes were thrown away. He, sitting alone on the ashes, took a broken chunk of pottery and with shaking hands scratched his sores, trying to find calmness. At last his wife, weary and grieving, looked upon him and said,
"How long will you hold on to your faith? Curse God and die."
But Job lifted his eyes, his voice weak yet unshaken. "You speak as one of the foolish women would speak. Shall we accept good from God and not also the times of trouble?" And though his body was broken, his spirit still bowed in reverence. In all this, Job did not sin with his lips. Far away from Uz, 3 men who were friends of Job heard of his suffering, his loss, his pain, his fall from honor. Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite, men of wisdom and renown, set out together to comfort their friend. The journey was long, and when they neared Job's land, the smell of ash carried on the wind. When they saw him from afar, they scarcely recognized him. His body frail, his face shadowed by pain, his hands scraping his skin with broken clay. Their hearts broke within them. They tore their robes in grief and threw dust upon their heads, as a gesture of deep sorrow and a sign that they entered Job's grief. Then they came near and sat beside him, on the bare ground among the ashes, and for 7 days and 7 nights none spoke a word, for they saw that his suffering was beyond words. But on the 7th day, tormented by his physical agony and the depth of his despair, Job lifted his voice and cried out, "Let the day perish on which I was born, and the night that said, a male child is conceived. May darkness claim it forever. Why did I not perish at birth or die as I came from my mother's womb? I would have in better peace, away from this torment and suffering." The silence was broken, and the true test of faith had only just begun, until at last words broke through the stillness. Eliphaz, the eldest, spoke first. His voice was gentle, but his eyes full of certainty.
"Job, has anyone ever suffered being innocent? Trouble does not come from nowhere. Maybe you have done something wrong."
Job answered, "What truth? You twist my agony into proof. I know my heart. God knows it too, even if he smashes me for no reason." Then Bildad replied,
God is just, and he will not reject the blameless. If your children sinned, perhaps they reap their own reward. Repent, and you will be restored.
Job replied in shouting, "You blame the dead. You mock me. If God would respond, I would lay down my case, but he hides while I rot." Zophar, younger and passionate, could no longer hold back.
Job, your words are many, but your understanding is small. If only God would speak, he would show you the secrets of his wisdom.
And so the discussion began, Job holding up to his innocence and blaming God of being unfair. His friends, sure of his sin, now became like judges.
Please, if you find this video interesting, don't forget to subscribe. Every subscription helps me to continue to produce high-quality content like this and also buy more cattle.
But in all of this, God was listening. After the silence, after Job's cries, after the long words of men, God himself spoke, and from the storm God answered Job.
Who is this that darkens my counsel with words without knowledge? Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Have you ever commanded the morning? Can you thunder with a voice like mine?
Job fell to his knees, trembling before the whirlwind. I spoke of things too wonderful for me to know, he cried. My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. Then the storm calmed, the clouds broke apart, and sunlight poured through. The voice of God softened once more.
My anger burns against your friends, for they have not spoken rightly of me as my servant Job has. Let them offer a burnt offering for themselves, and my servant Job shall pray for them. For his prayer I will accept, that I may not deal with them according to their folly.
And so Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar did as the Lord commanded. They burnt the offerings, bowed low, and Job, still scarred but radiant in faith, prayed for them. Peace descended like rain upon dry earth. The heavens cleared, and the Lord restored Job's fortunes, twice as much as before. 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 oxen, 1,000 donkeys, and again his family returned. Job lived another 140 years, and he saw his children and grandchildren up to the fourth generation. At the end, Job died an old man full of age. Job's story isn't just from long ago. It's every believer's story today. In our modern world, loss doesn't always come as raiders or storms. It comes as job cuts, heartbreak, depression, or betrayal. When Satan attacks, his plan is still the same: to make you doubt God, to convince you that pain means abandonment, and that brokenness means you're forgotten. But God's plan has never changed either. The enemy means to break us, but God uses every loss to build us. So when everything falls apart, keep trusting, keep praying, keep believing, because the battle may begin with Satan's plan to destroy you, but it will always end with God's plan to restore you.